and calm down. And just really make sure what a career path looks like, and hopefully encourage you to find your own. Now, a little bit about me from 2007 here. Any of you recognize this body language, posture, or emotional angst? Yeah, that's everybody tonight. So, and I swear I had more than one shirt back then, but it's funny. So this shirt says artists and designers are a dime a dozen, and that has never been more true than now. So part of what I'm going to talk about is really all of you are going to have to continue to work and learn, and that's going to be your path. Your path never ends. It just keeps going. So we're a dime a dozen, and some of us are special, and some of us are not. Just a little bit about my, actually, let me turn my volume down here. So 2007, I graduated from here, this illustrious campus, Sac State. Around then, I was working part-time at a print shop. I did screen printing, embroidery, promotional products. So like, all those like golf balls, pens, and water bottles with logos on it. 2007, I actually started working for Apple. I don't know if you've ever heard the infamous Gwen Amos.
Mario talks about her all the time.
Yeah, Mario, definitely. She gave me some of the best advice. And I'll start with this question. How many have worked in customer service, retail, restaurants? Okay, you're ahead of the curve. I had never, and I think it showed. She was like, you need to learn how to talk to clients and learn how to talk to customers and deal with people, because people can be people. So everyone who's worked in retail and restaurants and customer service, you can maybe identify with this. So she said, well, why don't you get a part-time job? I searched, whatever was the search engine back then. Number one in customer service, got a part-time job at Apple. Almost immediately, I got hired on as what's called a creative. I taught, and I was doing design and freelancing and photo and video. And they said, well, why don't you do some of that for us? So from 2007 to 2019, I got to teach apps. I got to support all the professional video apps, but all the while I got to do photo, video, and some design along the way too. We're going to come back to that a little bit, but I made my own role. There wasn't a role. And that's going to be a very, very big part of your lives. If you're going to freelance, if you're going to get a job at some place and they just want you to design something, you're going to have to define your role. So we'll come back to that a little bit. Most recently, I had the bright idea right before 2020 to leave Apple, the #1 company in the world, and go freelance. And then 3 months later, I realized that was the dumbest idea ever. But I luckily, a former alum of mine had a creative agency, and I got to join as a creative producer, project manager, and what I like to call a hat wearer. So I got to do some brand identity, visual identity, fun stuff. I hear some of you have the brand identity class right now or doing branding. So cool. And then as you can see, 2007 until I die, I'm going to be freelancing. So design, photo, video, drones, social, MoGraph. I forgot to put AI on there. If you guys aren't playing with any of those, I'm happy to talk about that stuff because it's actually a very important tool for you to learn right now, or a month ago or 3 months ago, because it's really great for concepting and brainstorming. I say all that to kind of show you my path is not perfect. Some of it was not design. I feel like I've been able to do something creative every single year since I left this campus, if not years before. And I hope too, when you guys leave here, there's going to be some of you who don't go into design, and that's okay. You're learning all kinds of skills. You're learning analytical thinking. You're learning, critical thinking. You're learning how to be creative. You're learning how to stay up all night and, work on a computer. And I know people my age, I know people who are 20 who don't know how to use computers. And that's crazy, right? Or they don't know how to use certain functions of it. And every one of you has probably had to troubleshoot at 3 a.m., and figure out some stuff. So you'll be ahead of the curve in any field that you go into. And I promise that. And if not, and in 20 years, you see me on the streets, tell me I'm wrong. I don't care. All right. So consumption versus creating. This is the biggest thing. And we have it harder than ever. How many of you recognize those two on screen? So good, right? How many are caught up? Okay. So it's going to be hard, right? Because people might start talking and naming all these characters. But let me ask you this: Have you been working instead of watching that? Or any of you who are not caught up, what have you been doing instead of? Are you watching something else? Are you learning? Are you staying up all night? Right? This is going to be a very, very important question to ask yourself when you get into the 5th episode of Love is Blind, because your partner loves Love is Blind. Walk away. Everyone should walk away from that show. But I got very obsessed with this question to the point where on my keyboard, I wrote it across the keyboard. So if I went to my keyboard and I was about to type Netflix, or I kind of thought about it every single day. I went to my keyboard because this is going to be a very, very important question you ask yourself every single day. This is Netflix. This is TikTok. It's also known as a black hole, but that's kind of what it looks like. And really just ask yourself those questions. What am I consuming and what am I creating? I'll throw it out to you. Anybody want to tell me, what are you consuming right now? What's something that's consuming your life or you're consuming?
Sometimes you consume.
Okay, example.
I used TikTok a lot for tips on Illustrator or inspiration. Hey, check out these designs from 19 whatever, and I'll save them and I'll look back at them for reference. So how can I recreate that thing?
That's awesome. I get chills with it because that's how I've now used Instagram. I don't follow personal people, for Instagram. I follow design accounts. I follow photo accounts. Pinterest. I've resisted Pinterest for the longest time because I had some ill-conceived notion of it, and then I started using it for design, and it's the greatest, for concepting. So that's a perfect example. Creating. Outside of a full-time job at school, what are some of you creating that's not necessarily related to your homework and projects? Yeah.
I have wild dreams right now because how you mentioned it, that sometimes you're going through that your path is not linear, and sometimes you're going through ups and downs, and that's life. And that's the reason why I've been going through depression, ups, downs, and I struggle with money like many of us we have. And I'm finished with the program.
Okay.
But I still not have my degree because I still have some classes that I need to finish.
Okay.
And right now I'm using that time to work in projects that I'm putting myself into it. I'm working in 3 books. But that's my wildest dreams. I don't know what I want to do, but I just want to inspire more people the way other people have inspired me.
Yeah.
Because I see you and I see the person that I choose to become, that I want to become, even though I barely know you.
Yeah.
That's
awesome. I think you're on the right track. I was a summer graduate because I suffer from 80% not being good enough. And that's a B. And my partner, I love her, but she has the greatest phrase ever, and it's called C's get degrees. And she's a lawyer, which they get that. I don't know if you know this, but lawyers, they receive doctorates. So she has a doctorate of something with a J. I don't know, but that, and I've kind of through her realized, oh, you don't have to go 100%, to achieve something. Get the B, get the C, and then on to the next thing. And I think, you can't let anything ever get you down for too long. There's, I'm sure, a better phrase than this, but it's it's not about like, you know, when you fall down, it's about how you pick yourself up afterwards or something. I don't know, you know, look it up. Google's got it better than me. But it is that, right? You know, you talked about depression. You know, a lot of us go through it. I don't know if you saw my slide at the beginning, but I've been code switching since I was a kid. You know, my name is Vicente. Most Vicentes don't have the second N in them, so I'm not even like that Spanish enough. And, you know, and then like you do 23andMe and you're like, I'm not anything who I am. And you suffer with that self-identity. You know, I talked about leaving here and not being a designer, right? Not being a junior designer, and then a senior designer, and then an art director, and then, you know, you'll suffer with these identity issues, you know, and you can't do that. Just keep working, and you guys are just a couple slides ahead of what I'm trying to say here, but that's it, is just keep working. And that's going to be something that's always going to be really important. And then that'll define you. And you kind of have to make that path, right? Are you aiming for something, or are you constantly doing something and you look up and you go, oh, this is who I am. So before we kind of jump to the next ones here, consuming and creating, you know, kind of heard a little bit of talking, but anybody got a good example of consuming and creating at the same time? Or the ability to?
I feel like, for example, right now I'm just going to all bookstores that you can buy like books really cheap.
Okay.
And you find something that you like or you find appealing to you as after the lessons that you learn from book reading, and you get inspiration from that. So I feel like that's another way of consuming. Like,
okay.
Sometimes you get yourself in pop culture just because you want to learn a little bit more on how to influence other people in that way.
Yeah, and I think you're getting there. I think find ways to create after that, right? If you go on TikTok and you find, you know, 1920s designs, did you then create a design after that? You know, something to think about. Did you write notes? You know, a lot of you have to do active reading in college, right? You read and then you make notes, right? You're consuming and then you're creating something. One of my favorites, and this is kind of a twist on it, is go to an event and then network, right? Right? Reese consumed this event during SAC Design Week, and then we created this relationship to now be here. And that's going to be very valuable. So don't always think about creating something tangible. You know, everything's in the computer, but, you know, creating a network, right? Or creating learning that's something there too, right? Work. Let's talk about work. What is work? Anybody got just no wrong answers here? No, you can't say them all. Come on, everybody else. Come on.
9 to 5.
To survival.
Okay, I like 9 to 5. Okay. Anything else? Come on. Money. Okay. Just I want like really wrong answers right now. Just wrong answers. Come on.
Work is not supposed to be fun.
Work is not supposed to be fun. Okay, I'll take it off. Defining work, right? So there's a lot of different types of work. We heard 9 to 5, right? So classic full-time job. Freelancing is not 9 to 5 unless you're talking 9 p.m. to 5 a.m., right? A lot of times we also view work as a means to survive, right? Money. And that's very true. Barter systems work really well. I'm trying to barter right now for a private office that would cost me $600 a month. But if I take a couple of photos and videos, now I suddenly have a private office. And that's going to be something to think about too. You have a talent, you have a skill. Is there something of value? I had a friend who he bartered a restaurant. And any restaurant, small little local restaurant, isn't going to pay you much, right? Their budget or anything, but they'll happily give you food. Now, I don't know if you're like me, who can eat way more money and way more, you know, this way than money. You know, that became a thing where now every time he goes in that restaurant, they give him a meal. And this has been, I think, 4 years he did it. I know last, you know, and so that's something where do you take $200 in cash, or do you take probably $2,000 in food at this point, right? So there's that means to survive, right? In this idea of work. But there is going to be this idea of what you do best, right? That barter system. I was not good at bartering at all. I'm like not a haggler. I wasn't always creative in that way to be like, hey, let me do this, let me do that. Now I'm like, oh, well, maybe we can kind of make this trade. But really something to think about is that like 9 to 5, right? How many of you have had a 9 to 5? How is it?
Can't do it anymore.
And I believe you said work is not supposed to be fun. All right. Anyone with the 9 to 5 will tell you it's not fun. Cubicles are not fun, right? Working in an office. When I was at Apple, I worked in retail. I worked for Apple Care in a call center. When my partner came to that call center, she was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Now I know why when you get home and I'm scrolling through Instagram and you're hearing, I'm like, yeah, that's because I hear 1,000 phone calls that are basically the same thing, right? Or I'm in retail and I'm dealing with people. There's going to be these things that you don't like. So find out like what work you like to do. Now, also with that, are you a slow worker or are you a fast worker? Do you like to work by yourself? Do you like to work with technology? Do you like to collaborate with people? And that's going to change too. You know, I think whatever you feel now may change in a year, 2 years time, 10 years time. But try to figure out what work you do best. And maybe you need to like take time to work at it. Gwen said, you need a customer service job. Here I am 20 years later, and I really feel like I like talking to people and I can talk to people and I love talking to people. I'm talking grease your ear off, you know? Like that is now something where 20 years ago, nah, that's not me. Some of you might be shy. When I got into video production, I had to tell like the director of Apple Care, what you're saying right now is wrong. Like, okay, come on, you gotta get this. And now I'm directing someone who's way above my pay grade. 20-year-old me, no, couldn't have done that. 30-year-old me was like, hey, so that we can best portray what you're trying to say, let's go ahead and have you do that 3 more times. You know, and that becomes something where now I've learned what work I do better. I'm actually a decent director. And you know, and that comes with age as well too. So what does work look like? How many of you have a whiteboard at home? That is too few answers. Butcher paper. Anybody got a big roll of butcher paper? Mirror that you write on? Okay. Anybody do that too? Okay.
My first.
Oh, do it. Any large canvas. So what's in here is not this small, right? Like what's in here is, you know, it's a lot, right? I recommend this if you don't want to do a whiteboard. I got a roll of butcher paper at one point in time in my life, got some masking tape, and I shoved that butcher paper against the wall, rolled it up, mask it off, and I'd write. And then I'd rip it off. And then I'd roll it back up, tape it, and start writing. And what it allowed me to do is do this chaos and just like get out whatever was in my head, right? Is it really fun and nice to like throw things on that board over there and be like, oh my God, now that I see it on this big gray board, why did I make that decision? You know, that's what you kind of need to do. And unfortunately, we've got these little 15, 13, I mean, sometimes some of us have some bigger, you know, screens, but like get it out. And for me, I know that's what work looks like, is me having to like put things on the wall and move stuff. But also sometimes it's like journaling and planning and just writing out your week or day or months or time, or self-initiated projects, you know, whatever it may be at any given time. It's, you know, I don't know, anybody bullet journal or do journaling? Yeah. Does it help? Yeah. Do it. You know, I mean, I love the earth. You know, short of a couple of these trees that went down, they're going to grow back. Like, that's the least of our worries. Like, buy journals, write down. And then what it also will help you do too is get these ideas out and move on to the next one, right? Get out these D's and E's and C's and F's, you know, and then you can refine them and go to B's and C's and A's. But that's work. do it. Like, you got all this work that you need to do. We kind of talked a little bit about this, about how you can consume and work at the same time. There was an example. I think events, art events, design events. The Crocker right now started German Expressionism on film, and it's like this great thing that started up. It's going to be these really funky movies for like, I think it's, hour and a half, but that's a way that you can kind of work your brain. And then do you go home and then do you start creating, and then now you've got a portfolio piece. These are different ways to kind of consume and work at the same time, create and work at the same time, and really learn and work. So kind of ask these questions to yourself. What am I consuming? What am I creating? But how can I consume and work at the same time? How can I create and work at the same time? You're in school right now. You're making portfolio pieces. Keep creating. That's work. A portfolio is your advertisement. That's your PR. That's your marketing, right? There's marketing departments in every big business right now. You're just your own marketer and you're working for yourself. So find those ways to kind of redefine it. And lastly, what's your path? Anybody in here study spatial relativity or theory of, okay. I was a science nerd before I switched to graphic design. So this is a fun little graphic of observing light, but I really love it because there's it's analogous, right? You can kind of see everything of the past cone below, the possibilities of the future extend out, and there's this hyper surface of the present, right? And this is the moment. And you just go through life cutting these slices of the present, built off the past with this projection of what's out there. But you only exist in the present, right? Some of us get a little caught kind of trying to travel down that cone, in the future. Some of us travel backwards in that cone, but you only exist right there in that moment of present. And that's what's going to kind of direct you forward here. So career path. Let's talk a little bit about mine, and hopefully all my little animations work. I like to experiment and be fun and funky, and that led me into photography really quick. How many of you are artists? Like, you can grab a canvas and start drawing, right? You're amazing. You're awesome. I cannot do that. I would if I stare at a blank page, I can't create. How many of you, when given an idea, feel like that's when you can start creating and start being an artist, right? For me, I found the tool that worked was a camera. It was the only tool that I could see something in my head. I could see on the other side of that column and go, okay, well, let me grab that 28 mil and I'll shoot at f2, and I know the photo that I'm gonna get, and I'll do a little framing and all this. And real quickly, I was like, oh, this is my paintbrush. I can't take a pencil and draw exactly what I'm doing. And so I kind of gravitated towards photography, and then I started doing funky stuff. And this was my motivation. So finding your motivation. How many of you like to carry 100 pounds of gear with you and have to, go up and down elevators? Right? Kind of an inverse, right? What are you not motivated by? I showed this picture to one of my partners, and they were like, she's like, no, I would never do that. And, some photographers, I mean, it's a little easier now, or a little luckier, but they have bad backs and bad wrists and hands and so are you not motivated by that? I kind of like doing it. I don't know why. I like physical, tangible things. Plus it was a workout. I didn't have to go to the gym. Buddies are my motivation. How many people are motivated by other people? That's most of us. We're human beings. Come on now. We're all like this. But how many of us are introverts? Right? How many are extroverts? How many didn't raise their hands? I feel like there was one. Learn how to be both. I think what I learned about is I'm very comfortable actually by myself, but I work better with people, right? Working by myself, I'm stuck at 79%, 80%, 81%. You know, this just isn't perfect. 99%, no, I can't. Then I go partner with somebody and they might say, oh, what do you think about this? Or they go, oh, dude, that's great, put it out, right? You ever hear like a musician or like an actor or something be like, oh, I thought that was my worst work, and then that became like my #1 movie or single, right? That's a thing in the art community. So finding that, I love sharing with people, and I found out actually that's like my kind of thing too. So this is my good buddy Alex, and we're big sharers, so we're sharing camera skills. I like to be funky, I like to be weird, but I like to be in the desert shooting music videos. This is Black Rock Desert. Looks a little different than the typical Burning Man that's there, but that's what Burning Man is. Photo and videos allowed me to do a lot of cool things, and so I kept doing it. You know, I got to go out in the middle of the desert and make a music video. It was fun. I like getting the shot that no one else got. There was a period in my life where I operated with that mantra. Which, side note, find your mantras, write them down on your fridge, your butcher paper, your journal. One of my mantras at one time was, you know, get the shot that no one else is getting. So then I find myself climbing buildings or riding in a sidecar and a motorcycle, which was really fun. But find your motivation. You know, those are the things that motivated me. It's not all I did. Some of the things I did. Drones came along. I used to like to call them aerial photography because drones kind of have a negative connotation. But, you know, I lost that battle. So one person in Sacramento couldn't change the whole world. But maybe they did. Technology. I'm motivated by technology. How many like new technology and new things? Yep. Fun stuff. Analog. How many people just like old school analog things? Yeah. So find your motivation and stay within that. I mean, you know, there's almost 8 billion of us in the world. Like, do what you want, find your audience, and as long as you're motivated by it, someone else probably is too and enjoys it, and it's going to be, you know, scrolling through stuff. Self-initiated projects. There's an event that used to called Gather in Oak Park and a couple other places. I used to go and attend, and then one day I went and I was like, oh man, I should get like an aerial shot and then I don't know, write something or something on the screen. I don't know if I can animate it again quickly here. Let's see. But I would just go home after these events fired up and be like, oh, I'm gonna, well, it goes to the beat, you can imagine that. If you get fired up from something, go home. Screw Last of Us. It's great, but screw it. It'll be there later on. Just go make something. I've missed a lot of pop culture things. You know, I mean, it's like from Honey Boo Boo to whatever. I don't know all these pop culture things because I would just go home and I would just create stuff after that. I wouldn't watch TV, you know. So find those little things to do on your own. I would go home and just make stupid, silly things. Make bad things. Like, don't let 80%, you know, get you down. C's degrees, it's a thing, right? But these started developing a skill set. So now we're talking about my career path, where now this little animations and playing around suddenly, oh, it doesn't like to play the videos here, but we'll see. Can we get another one? I like music. Good audio trigger. So I might be biased. Let's see. Here we go. Can we get it? All right. Well. But these, you know, started turning into work. These little projects that I played around with on my own time now started getting me work. You know, and it was just, once again, right, things that it started from, I was motivated by some new technology. I liked animation and graphics. I started doing projects on my own, and then that became a career. And along the way, took some pictures for some people, some products, right? I obviously love music, so I would talk music with people, and they go, we got this cool little fun product. Cool, let's take some pictures. While working at Apple, I would just like constantly hound people about like design and photo and video. And so they're like, hey, we need this thing for a meeting. Can you make up, you know, I don't know, some like retro lanyards for this 80s themed meeting that we're doing? Yeah. Hey, you know, our family room did great. Can you make a flyer for us? This is not my job, you know, it's like, but slowly it did become my job. And I started to make my own career as I went. I would start making all of our training flyers, and I had fun with it, you know, and they let me be a little loose and free, but it was because I produced stuff too, because I was very fortunate for the opportunity, and then I did it. And then that actually blossomed once again organically into this career, actually shooting photos for, you know, different things that go on. Don't tell anyone at Apple I'm showing you these, because I never know. I don't know. Their lawyers are really good. But you know, it became this thing where now we need all this internal media and communications, right? You work for a job, they have all kinds of photos and videos in the internal. And then once again, training videos and stuff. So I do all these little training things where it's probably not gonna, oh, I did, okay, yeah. So then start designing keynotes, right? Because they saw me with keynotes. Now I'm making more things, and this kind of organic career path. Oh, I hope this one flows. This one's so good. So people who got invited. And once again, my playfulness, my joy, I was able to actually kind of transfer that to someone else. I don't know how long this will play, but we'll see. But I had an internal demo reel that I would.
As far as our agenda today, I'm going to share a little bit with you about me.
So some fun stuff.
I'm just really, really thrilled to have the opportunity to share this moment.
If you ever see anybody on the street in this video, don't tell them. Because of my passion, or because of the things that I like to do, right? I got that experience. And then I leave Apple and end up working for a creative agency because I knew someone from school. They needed help. I took the videos that are in the background, and I directed the photo shoot, and then I helped with some of the copy. So I brought all those things, and now, you know, whatever it is, 20 years later, I don't know how old I am. But all of that, you know, career, right, kind of went a little left, went a little right. Projects I did outside now become projects inside. And, you know, I got to do some cool things. Now, what's cool is that bakery one. Hold on, let's see if I can go back. Let's go. One more. All right. Circling back to some things. So I got to do photos. I got to direct the photo shoot, and then I got to do videos. This is a great company called Firebrand. If you search for Firebrand artisan breads or Firebrand breads, they hire people formerly incarcerated, and they hire people who've, you know, been unhoused, homeless, if you must, just to know the lingo. But I really wanted to work with this creative agency because they were working with people like this. So now all the things that I cared about, you know, whether it was community and giving a shit. If you give a shit, you know, you have to make a decision. There's a lot more nonprofits nowadays, but, you know, are you willing to do ads for Truly or for gambling, you know, DraftKings or cigarettes and vape companies? Like, ask yourself if you're okay with that stuff. I very early on said I'm okay being broke with morals than I am, you know, rich with none. So eventually it led me to some cool companies. But I've been fortunate to kind of be in that place now to be able to do this. I really believed in Apple. You can think whatever you want with them. I drink the Kool-Aid, but I saw internally how a lot of people care. And you'd be very surprised at how much you know, they do care. You know, and I got to teach and I got to support people, and so I saw firsthand the interactions. So it was nice. I stayed around literally because it was a good company, not just, I would have left. I'm happy to cancel a client. And if you don't feel good about a client, then cancel them. That's your career path, is not being talked down to or not working with somebody who doesn't have morals. I've had plenty of clients who they'll say one thing, I get a bad feeling about this person. And then if I continue to work with them and I go, oh, okay, now they stiffed me on money, they talk bad about their wife, and they probably don't use their blinkers, they probably park in handicap zones. It's like, if you see one flag, there's probably 2 or 3 more. But that's going to matter. And then it's going to come back around. This client was a venture capitalist, and I don't know, you feel how you want about them. I'm kind of anti-elitist. I don't really like that stuff. But this is actually one of the only Black-owned VCs. So I was down. Let's do it. We got to create some materials for their virtual meeting. They usually have this nice meeting. They're big on talking to people. COVID happened, you can't talk to people. So we did this virtual event. I got to do some animations and design this out, and hopefully get them to raise money, because a lot of the companies they're investing are woman-led, right? You have minority-owned, you have nonprofits, you have all these companies that they're actually trying to fund that are good. Felt good for my heart, so I kept doing it and I didn't cancel. This is probably the last big project I did, and this was really cool because this was a project that came through our email that sounds like a lot of branding projects you'll get for clients. We want to change the status quo. We're a good financial company. And I read it, and my other 2 partners at the time said, I don't got a good feeling about this. And I said, you know what? I actually do have a good feeling about this. We researched the company. It was actually 2 companies at the time, 2 different financial organizations that invented technology that actually would look in a community like Detroit or LA or DC and go, actually, we can lend you money. All these other banks don't want to lend you money because you're Black, you're brown, you're from Detroit, LA, or DC. And they figured it out and go, well, actually, just because you don't have good credit doesn't mean you're not going to pay your money back. So they fund hospitals getting built, small businesses, big businesses, and whatnot. And they needed a new name for this new company, a logo, brand, everything. You guys know brand. But brand architecture for all the sub companies. And I was like, I think these guys are good. I get a feeling. And they were good. And they paid us a good amount of money, and it was like a 1.5-year long project. They unfortunately went with Momentous Cap, which we tried to kind of say, hey, you might not want to go with Cap. Cap means lie, I don't know. But whatever. They're, the people that they're getting to go to this website are a lot of rich people who don't know the lingo, and then give the money, and then they're like, just let us worry about putting the money to it. So we're like, all right. But Momentous Capital, what was really cool is we actually started from a people place. They had 2 companies. One company didn't want to talk to the other company. We said, you guys have a culture problem. Let's dial it back a little bit. You don't need a logo. You kind of need a really, really good mission, and you need people and culture and all this other stuff. So we made this brand brief that we said, first of all, you don't need a very expensive brand brief that's going to be $10 every time you print. Why don't we actually just have it be a good Word doc that any employee can open up and it speaks to what it is? We did a lot of research. We did meetings, Zoom meetings and stuff with 250 staff members. And we came up with this head, heart, and boots on the ground thing, because everybody was like, we're different because we have heart. We're different because we have a brain, and we're the Scarecrow and the whatever people from Wizard of Oz. But they were like, we have head and heart, and then we were boots on the ground. So we did their mission, vision, values. We split it up into 3 pieces, and we said, let's start here. This is what you need first. And then we went back and we said, okay, let's go to your website, and you don't need anything but people. So they had this whole cache of photos of people that they've taken pictures of. This was a community that broke ground for some housing development. And we're like, you have a bunch of people just smiling, and those feel better than any logo you can. And then I was really proud. The color, one of the names was Lantern that got thrown around, but I got to keep it for Lantern Light. So there's still Momentous Capital, but the color is called Lantern Light. And the idea is, here's your lantern for when it's dark. You don't need light. It's not dark anymore. You can turn the lantern off, set it to the side. But this bright yellow is the kind of beacon of light shining throughout, and that's going to be splashed all over wherever they go. So this is kind of a mock of the website. Brand brief, cool, but and then yeah, we made some really cool collateral. And once again, we were like, just do type, color, and people. Stop with everything else. And then Momentous is usually spelled momentous with an O, but we did this play on the moment being us, and us shoving people once again in between us to say, like, you guys are giving people money. Like, stop saying like, we're giving you money. Like, you know, if there's no project for you to give money, then you don't need to exist, right? Like, so this idea of really incorporating us became this piece of collateral. And we just really try to keep it simple and shine light on everything. And this was last year, we wrapped this project, and it felt really good because all my life, I gave a shit about people, and, you know, and in telling companies, like, it's the people. And that's a big thing at Apple. Apple talks about their people. I don't know if you've ever been in an Apple store and people start randomly clapping. It's pretty interesting, but when an employee leaves, the whole store shuts down for a second and basically claps them out. And everybody cries, and everybody goes, oh my God, I don't miss you guys, you're all family. But because it's this real thing where it's a family. And, you know, if you really, really do care, you're going to find people at your work, you're going to find people that are customers, you're going to find these people to connect to. And I think that's important. You know, we're designers, we have to visually communicate with people, and you don't visually communicate with the wall. You know, you have to communicate to someone, right? That's really something to keep in mind, right? Like you need people, you know, otherwise you have no job. Like you're not farmers. So that's been something that I've really held on to very tight. We got asked the question about the cigarettes. You know, cigarettes aren't as cool anymore. But it was like, would you design something for a cigarette company? And I was like, no, I don't think I would. And you know, and it was really because I've seen people hurt by that. And I've really just tried to carry that every step of the way. I've been burned by clients. I've canceled clients. I've maybe stayed with jobs because I like, oh man, this is a good person. They don't have the budget, but I want to help them. And that's going to be really tough, you know, and knowing when to cancel somebody who doesn't have a budget. Can they afford you? Once again, bring it full circle. Barters, right? What else can they do? Do they have a product that then they can give you? Is there spec work where you can write out a contract and say, well, if next year, you know, you have $1 million of revenue, like pay me $10,000. There's different ways to kind of get around that. But that's something to keep in mind, right? Now, that's been my career path. It started literally with, I talked about the little cone of relativity, cone of light. I started here as a mechanical engineer. God bless the mechanical engineers. I didn't like the people. We didn't talk about cool things. It was kind of fratty. That's not me. And we weren't thinking and we weren't talking. You know, it was just work. And at the time, I didn't want to Rihanna, you know. And I sat down with Park. Park's still here, right? Yeah. Woo! Park! I wanted to like figure out the design department, and I was like, you know, just the people like Shepard Fairey, he's a thinker, he created Obey, and I don't know, you know, it was like all these designers were people that I admired, and they happened to do skateboards and t-shirts, and there was other things, but I mentioned skateboards and t-shirts. And Park, like, I'm kind of old school, so Loped Up, I don't know if you ever hear Loped Up. Loped Up is like some old school gangster stuff where like you get hard on somebody, and I swear she like, it was like one of my like Mexican uncles who like been in prison. She was like, you think it's t-shirts and skateboards? You think that's what design is? You go home and you look up what design is. I was like, woo! Now, right? I'm embellishing a little bit because I was like, I don't know how it goes. But you know what? She challenged me. She challenged me more than any of the engineers, any of the math people. I failed 2 of those math classes because I would draw the graph. And they were like, no, that's not showing your work. I said, I literally showed the work. Like, they do this in the book, right? Like, you know, but if they wanted me to do it a certain way, I understand that. But I didn't like their thinking. But Park somehow, even though she gave me this response, she challenged me. She said, go home and look up what design is, and look up what graphic design is. And I went home and, you know, it was just all these great thinkers. And I was like, I think like that next day, I was like, I'm going to this program. And I went and I met one of my best friends who ran the creative agency that I worked at over COVID that saved my life probably, you know? Some of my best friends. And I just, the people in there, like, man, Mario can talk about Gwen, but Gwen made him who he is and all of us, right? But this critical thinking, this analytical thinking, I could go to Apple, I could go to the director, I can go to these VCs. I used to do photos and videos for TechCrunch, and there'd be these VCs, and I could talk to them in such a way, and I could break down their process, or they could talk about something over my head that I don't know what it is, but I could get the vision, right? I could understand their mission. I could understand their brand. And I just really was like, okay, I don't want to work in that world. Y'all are crazy. But I liked people, kept talking to people, liked Apple, met people. Photography, I got to meet people. Video, I got to meet people, you know, and then I, you know, kind of spiraled. And I mean, I don't know in the last 3 years, but diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility became a really popular thing. And, you know, my throat's dry because I've been yelling it for 40 years. You know, we talked about depression, code switching, not being Mexican enough, being too Mexican, you know, being in these environments. And, you know, my mom, born in the 40s, she used to tell me stories of like, it said whites only, blacks only. I didn't know where to go. You know, like, these are stories. I'm sure some of us got those stories. That made me kind of like click in these little ways along my career path to go, I got to stand up for this. I got to do this. I got to tell this director of Apple, she's talking down to people right now. Like, how you're talking to 3,000 people? No, you got to talk differently. And if I'm going to be the one person in the room who's going to tell you that, fire me. But I'm telling you because you're not seeing these people as people. So now I'm directing and they go, oh, I respect you for saying that. Oh, because I thought I was about to get fired. You know, but it became, that's my passion. That's where I'm talking. Now I'm talking to these people. And then I can read an email and go, oh, you know, they got some trite language like status quo. But let me look at their website. Oh, you know what? They're a good company. I could read people like that. Like, I'm now really good because I've carried that with me. Now, there's a lot of things I am not good at. But that's been my career path, and that's what's led me here. And, you know, all these little projects that I've done, all my little side hustles, you know, led me to here, So, you know, that's kind of something to take away. I'll recap and then we'll try and open it up, but I know we're also, I don't know what time is besides a flat circle or something like that. Let's go back. There we go. So just to recap, consumption versus creation, curate your consumption. Always be creating and practice learning. Defining work, so figure out how you work. Combine hobbies, entertainment, and work. Do self-initiated projects, but just keep working. Whatever that work looks like, just keep doing. And then career path. Yeah, find your motivation, and that career path will happen organically. And that's me. That's what it looks like in my brain at all times. Yeah, I guess open the floor for questions, or I don't know when you try and kick people out, but
Typically 7:30.
okay, yeah. I'm here. I'm gonna drink water. You figure out questions.
What's been like your favorite industry design?
You know, I don't know if it's exactly industry, but I really like local small businesses. I mean, I'm born and raised in Sacramento, and I've seen the transition and glow up of Sacramento. And I think it comes back to that people. I really like working with these people. So there was like some different projects that I've done that I really liked working with those people. I, like many people, have this weird relationship with money, and people who have it, and rich people and elitism, it exists. And so it's been hard for me. I think that's been a really cool thing. I will say the fun stuff for the small communities at Apple and departments was really fun, because it's that 9 to 5, and it's like, it's a 9 to 5, it's cubicles, it's all this other stuff. But when you make these little, retail, whatever, but when you make these little things that someone else goes, oh man, I saw that thing, like, and they digested it, right? And they enjoyed it. And that was a little part of their day that made it a little better, because, life isn't guaranteed happiness. It's not, work is not necessarily fun. So it's been local communities, and really like hyper local in departments at Apple. So, I'm an open book.
So you were saying during the consumption and creation part of your talk that you had something on your keyboard to go back to create and not consume. Do you have any other like words of advice or tips or anything that can help you get out from this constant consumption?
Yeah, I think especially now, most of your devices have screen time or some other app. Turn it on, because here's the thing: you can turn it off, but turn it on. Be aware at least of your consumption, right? Like, be aware that you're like, okay, I spent more than 15 minutes, on this app. Just escaped me. So like screen times, turn off notifications. A lot of the apps I really love. I'm an Apple guy, unfortunately, guys, for the rest of my life. But there's focus modes now, so you can like say, like, if I'm on Zoom, trigger this focus, and it shuts all the notifications off. And I love that. And so I set one up for Zoom and Google Meet and all the different software.
They have that for Samsung as well.
Yeah, do it. There's one like called bedtime, and what I started doing is actually putting like a wind down or something. And so for the 2 hours before that, like, anybody who texts me 2 hours before I'm gonna go to bed, like, I don't care what you're talking about. I'm not going out. Like, I don't know, it's like, are you dying? Okay, So like those things can wait. And I think that's gonna be really tough, is this delayed gratification. Before all these, I have to write things down, Post-it notes, put Post-it notes, and then be okay crumbling them up and then doing it again. One of my favorites actually on my calendar. So how many of you have New Year's resolutions or do New Year's resolutions? Right? Okay. Got the journal orders and stuff. So in your calendar, put a repeating event. Maybe it's every week on Sunday night. Maybe it's every month. Maybe it's every day, every night. What have you done? What were you proud of? Not to talk too much about depression, but I'm very open with mine. I used to have to do something called high-low. What was the highs of the day and what was the lows of the day? And that's actually, it's really powerful, because the worst thing you can do with anything is avoid it. Like, you have to confront those things, right? So to be able to go, oh man, I spent an hour on Instagram because screen time told me so. Or, man, the low of my day was when this person said this one thing. And then you go, the high of my day, though, is like, oh, I really enjoyed this class, or I really, I saw a beautiful leaf, or whatever, like, whatever it is. And you start to appreciate these things in different ways. And that became something that was really helpful for me, to just either write that down or have my calendar, right? Like, I'm a very forgetful person, but I can use technology. Okay, so this thing needs to remember for me. Like, I can't, I don't have gigabytes up here. Like, so let my calendar, let these tools kind of help keep me on track and say like, what have you done? Like, what was your biggest achievement? Like, did you create something today? What did you consume? You know, those types of things are really helpful. And then once again, like finding how you work. You know, I know people, like we talked about the fridge, like their Post-it notes are all over their fridge. I've never been that person. But my desk or in the fridge, like I would do things where like I'm a, like before bed, like sometimes I like to prep or like put on my running pants or whatever. I don't know. I would put a Post-it note in my fridge because I knew I was gonna go in my fridge and I knew I was gonna get something out of there. And I open it up and I go, ah shit, I gotta do that thing. All right, my fridge is telling me, you know, this thing. And that's kind of big, right? Is like don't try to remember the specific thing, just kind of know your behavior a little bit. And that's really gonna help out. Yeah. Find alternate devices too. I am actually looking at a non-Apple phone, but only because I like want to play with technology. But then shutting all those things down. Like I have an Apple Watch, and it was really for fitness. But then I'd get all the dings and all those things. So I ended up actually turning all that stuff off. And my watch actually has lasted me like way more years than everyone else's watch because I don't use it for everything. And I literally like if I'm running or I'm walking, I'm free. I'm out there in the word, you know, without like all this. Because it's hard. There's so much cool shit today. I mean, you know. And then the last thing I just actually wanted to piggyback the appreciation thing and like kind of like appreciating these moments and high moments, low moments. Find a creative outlet for that, right? Like I would go to these events, get fired up, want to create something. The camera really helped me with that. Cameras are very therapeutic. Some people go nature. My friend called me a trash photographer one time because I would take a picture of trash and they're like, oh, this is cool, right? And then what it did though, and you know, it's a little different now because we have, you know, phones that take really great photos. But I would see an empty lot. And this happened so many times I can't even fathom it. We pass by an empty lot or like a dirty, you know, I don't know, like crabgrass. I don't know. Name anything that like people would walk by and go, oh my God, that like looks abandoned, or oh, this looks like crap, or trash cans. And I would go, oh, that'd be a cool photo. And everybody else in my circle might be saying like, oh my God, the trash stinks, or like that car is all beat up, or like this, you know, there's trash on the ground, right? Or like it's all dirt, there's no grass there. And I like really picked up on that, like, oh, for me, I'm looking at it like this could be a cool photo. And I now have this weird appreciation for it. And I've met artists like this who will like see something and it's like dilapidated and they're like, I'm gonna go draw that. And so now they don't have this negative feeling about this thing that has nothing to do with them. Now they have this positive feeling because they're like, I can create something, and then it goes in their portfolio and someone hires them to do, you know, some art. So like switching your perspective and finding these ways to appreciate these things, you know, find that vehicle, find that tool, you know, and really you'll change your high low and you'll change what you feel like you've accomplished and how you kind of go out and about the world. Anything else? Design, yeah.
So I'm taking practice as a senior in the design program. And something that I feel like I've been struggling with is trying to like write my design like as still as Professor Forrest puts it. And I like try to start off like brainstorming what I value and describing my identity and my work. But then I still don't know how to like refine it into a way that like in one sentence describes who I am and what I do. Do you have any like recommendations or suggested like reflection practices that could help like with that?
Yeah, you know, I'm trying to think back there to something I was kind of saying earlier, right? But this idea of how you work and the work that you like to do, it's, you know, like when we're doing branding stuff, I don't know how much you got into this, but we focused a lot on verbs instead of nouns. And we tried to come up with like vision statements, mission statements that, you know, kind of spoke. Now, we had like 20 leadership who would like, that's not what we do, you know. But it's it's trying to kind of say your trajectory, right? Like, you know, I struggle with it, right? Like even this like media motion effects. It's like, well, no, I do photography, I do videography, I do this. Like, let me list all the things. I like creating visuals. I like capturing memories. I like verb something, right? Like that became a way to kind of say, you know, this is who I am. I enjoy, right? Like what are these other words that you can kind of put on that encompass it? And that's, you know, when you talk vision, right? And you talk like big picture stuff. So I would say really describing yourself, and maybe it's a verb list, maybe it's a noun list, something to think about. And that's always a really good way to kind of approach something is like change the parameters of it. Right? Like your statement, right? Are you trying to go, okay, my statement can only be one sentence long, and that's the parameter. Okay, well, there's, you know, it's like the English language is like enormous. Try and find a different way to reach that, right? And I'm going to keep dropping math in here because I believe in STEM. So in math, right, you have temperature. Let's say that's a point of data, right? It's 90 degrees. Something called a vector is like wind, right? It's 15 miles per hour northwest, right? Because wind just doesn't exist, right, without a trajectory, and it makes it more important in that way. And that's kind of the way, like, you know, you kind of think about it, right? It's like, okay, well, am I thinking of like the nouns, or am I actually thinking of like the verbs, and like, you know, and then really, once again, switching perspectives. You know, a lot of times we write, you know, these statements from us, like to the world, you know, try and write it to one person, or, you know, one company, or even saying like, you know, what you'll provide, you know, or what is going to be the, not provide, but like the benefit, right? Like it's one thing to say like, oh, I'm going to give you photos, right? It's another thing to say like, you're now going to have a proper representation of your brand. Those can be the two same things. Like, I'm going to make you a logo, or like you're going to be able to express yourself through this graphic. You know, there's different ways, right, to kind of change, you know, change that, right? And so maybe that statement, right, as much as it's like this personal thing, right, what is going to be the benefit of someone working with you? Yeah, absolutely. Perspective. Perspective's great. Love it. Do it. How do I avoid feeling burnt out? That's a tough one. I'm trying to find a way to say like it's okay to get burnt out, because I've burned out plenty of times. And I think it's just, once again, right, how do you pick yourself up? So one, know that, right? Don't avoid, you know, like, you know, avoid something because you're like, oh, I may burn out. Like, know that, like, okay, I burnt out. Sorry, hey, we got to cancel this. On to the next thing. But really, it's, I think, you know, this was kind of even to the finding your motivation thing. Find what you enjoy, and kind of defining my own role. I think that's actually how I've avoided burning out, is doing things maybe a different way. If you are going to work in a corporate environment, read their guidelines, and throw them back in their face. Apple is a huge company started by hippies, and they preach a lot of people stuff. But sometimes managers don't know that, and they don't love when you quote what's written down for them right back in their face. But what they go is go, okay, all right, I see what you're doing, but hey, you know, maybe we find a compromise. And I think that has helped me in such a way go, okay, I'm going to make this decision because I don't want to do it, let's say, your way, because I think actually the way that it should be done. And you know, it sounds a little egotistical, but I know I have good morals. I know I have good values. So to go from that, go that path, right? And say like, I know I'm doing what's right. I know that we said in this contract, we believe in doing what's right. So this is why I'm doing it. And you kind of have your evidence. And I think that actually translates to like freelance. have contracts. You know, if you're going to have a tough time with, with a client, man, come back to that contract and just be able to, say like, hey, well, we agreed upon this. And you're going to get burnt, and you're going to burn out on projects, and, maybe it's a different approach. Maybe it's resetting your expectations. And sometimes it really is just being like, this is my problem and I have to deal with it. And you kind of trudge through it, and you kind of get through it, or know that it'll be okay getting through it. But this is also, to some extent, I've always had 1.5 jobs, right? Side hustles, always working on the next thing, right? Those self-initiated projects, like, oh man, I think I'm going to get burnt out. Let me see what this, side thing is about, right? Let me go home. Let me start working on my portfolio. Let me learn this new skill. Let me apply for new jobs. Like, let me do all these things. And so then you go, okay, I got something to look forward to. Okay, let me just kind of trudge through over here, and I've got the next thing to go to. And that's helped me actually a lot. And then what I found is I would be learning these new skills, and then I would share it with someone at work, and they'd go like, oh, well, like, let's do this thing. Like, okay, well, you renewed this burnout contract. Let me like set the clock back. And I think that happens a lot, where you get to kind of reset when you step outside, handle your own. Yeah.
Any advice to creating contracts with clients and so on? What did your highlight to be just beginning?
Yeah, I mean, there's stuff online, email, just get stuff written down. That's a big thing. It's just, as long as you can like get some words out. The biggest things are going to be time that you spend on a project, right? Revisions that they want. I think those are kind of big things. There's plenty of like online contracts that, you can kind of steal from, but saying like, okay, I'm going to spend, this amount of time, and some people say don't put time in there, but whatever. Say rounds and revisions. And that will save you so much headaches, because the last thing you want is an email chain back and forth, 20 emails deep of like, oh, well, can you change this? Can you change that? And I think that really helps to say like, okay, I'm going to give you 3 concepts. You'll pick one. I'll give you 2 variations on that. You'll pick one. I'll do 1 refinement. And then, maybe we'll have a review round. And if you feel like you need to refine it, then, maybe we'll do a scope increase or something. But that's going to save you a lot on that end. Now, the other end, do deposits, give them payment schedules. I definitely have failed at this, and I've seen it a lot of times, where if you don't give them the schedule to pay, or you don't give them a way to pay, you make it harder for them. But if you actually literally said like, here's my Venmo link, right? Or here's my 1099, or here's my contract, here's everything. Here's the link, on whatever, LegalZoom or whatever it is, right? Here's all my information. Go ahead and sign the contract, pay the 25% deposit, and then we can start the project. And 9 times out of 10, you get, okay, cool. That's it. But if you're like, oh yeah, let's start the project. Yeah, starts good. Yeah, just we'll talk. And if you're really loose with it, right? Imagine going to a restaurant and there's no menu. They're like, oh yeah, so yeah, we can probably give you some food or something. And yeah, I don't know, I don't know, we'll probably pay somewhere over there or something. That's kind of weird. Like, do you have a menu and a cash register? Like, there's like, you need these kind of parameters, and just setting that for them. Most people are going to pay for work. And I think if you just tell them, this is what you need to pay, when you need to pay, and how much you need to pay first for me to start the project. And then it's going to suck, but like, be okay canceling people or saying no. I like people. I said yes way too many times, and I got burnt. It's like, man, all right, we're on our 3rd revision. Like this is really, like, you could probably run with this. Can we get paid? And people are gonna try and punk you. And it's unfortunately, there's those people. But yeah, I think, find a system, find a contract, even if it's bad. I mean, how many of you have read the terms and conditions of anything you've ever said that you've read the terms and conditions of ever? They're terrible, right? Like no. So it's, copy and paste verbiage. I had spelling errors in one of mine for like 8 years. I didn't even know. No one pointed it out. Like, no one cared. They're like, okay, I just clicked the button. Oh, yes, okay, like, so it's as long as you give something, and it also makes you look more professional, right? Think of how many like very established businesses have terrible like contracts and like, all this stuff. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. I was like at Big O Tires or something, and I was just like, this is like a terrible, like, this is like very antiquated. Like, it was really bad. I was like, if I gave this to a client for like, $100 job, I don't trust you. So as long as you're giving them something and giving them, sign here, put, your name, whatever, do the things and pay me 25%, and then pay me in 2 weeks or pay me when it's done. And tell them, I think a lot of us creators will go like, oh yeah, I'll get it done. And then, if you don't give them a schedule, say, okay, hey, we're going to record this day. 2 weeks from now, I'll have a concept for you. In 3 weeks, we'll do, a round, and then we'll do another round in another week. And then, hopefully we'll wrap in 4 months or, whatever, 4 weeks. And then asterisk, all email communication is, expects a 72-hour response. Any additional time will add time. Like if they add time, they are adding time, right? Like if they're not going to get back to you for a week because they were on vacation, it doesn't mean that what you said was going to be due in 3 weeks is now due in 3 weeks. It's now due in 4 weeks because there's an extra week. And that's going to be helpful too. Learning to talk to people. That's tough. Tell people what you're feeling. I mean, I think I've had bad conversations, and through that bad conversation, we arrived at a good place. Maybe I was scared or I was timid or I like didn't know the right words, and they, and we kind of like go through this like little battle, and then we worked it out. And I think one of the best interactions I ever saw, and I've used this, and feel free to use it. If someone's ever mad with you and they're trying to like expect you to be the good person, it's okay to be like, you're upset, I'm upset. You think I want to talk to an upset person? We're both upset. So why don't we actually reset? And you'll be surprised how many people go, all right, okay, I came in hot, or whatever it is. Like you get through these emotions. Because if you act timid and they're upset, and there's like power dynamics and all sorts of stuff. But they're not going to get any more confident in you. And that confidence is going to come with time, and it's going to come with conversations, and but you have to have some professionalism, you have to have some confidence, and you have to be able to say like, you can't treat me this way. Like I'm doing work for you. Like this exchange, right? We said I'm going to do a logo, you're going to pay me money. That's the conversation we're having. So you're upset because the logo doesn't look like you wanted. Understand. Hey, why don't we compromise? Let's do one more revision because I don't want to be upset. I don't want you to be upset. Let's reset. And that's been a very valuable tool for me to do that reset. I got nothing to do today. I'm caught up on Last of Us. Try and find a generic hourly range. That really helped me. It was like $20 an hour. It's like an easy number. Tell someone, I think it's probably going to take me about 8 hours. $160. Is that okay? Once again, you came to the conversation saying that's what it's going to charge. And they go, that's a little steep. I don't know. We're like, fine, okay. That's what most people will find. What's tough is you don't always know how much time things are going to take. And I really wish I would have have done revisions and review rounds earlier in my life. Because I think if you say it's going to take 20 hours, that means you're going from 0 to 100 with no communication in between. I think one of the best things you can do is be collaborative and have check-ins. That year and a half long branding project, we had a weekly check-in with one of the people. We had review rounds and revision rounds and all staff meetings, and we had this constant check-in because there's no way that we could have made a final product that they would have loved. But it also helped us keep in check because there would be times where we're like, we would spend all this time like thinking something and then we put it in front of them and they're like, oh yeah, that's fine. Or, it's like, well, why don't we just do this? And we go, oh, that's a great solution. You're okay with that? Like, great. Because it's also then okay for them to participate in this. And sometimes that like, you can even ask customers this and clients like, hey, how involved do you want to be in this? And it's okay for them to like design with you. If you look it up, there's like a lot of famous graphics where it's like, I design it and it's this price. I design it, but you tell me what it needs to look like and it's more expensive. And then it gets all the way to the bottom and it's like, you design it and it's the most expensive thing. Because if that customer is going to be like, oh, do this and do that and do this and do that, like, you don't want that. But there's a happy medium. Like if you have a style, great. And people can come to you and be like, I want your style, whatever you do, charge me whatever, that's great. That's easy for us. But there's a middle ground. And I really think collaborating and reviewing. And so if you go, oh, it's going to be 20 hours at $20, I don't know if I can afford that. That's $400. Okay, well, how about this? Let's take an hour. You and me will meet up. Let's work through some ideas. We'll spend a couple of hours after that. Let's meet up again, or we can do on Zoom and I'll show you what I've got and then we can do another revision. And what you'll find is most of the time that will actually take way less time than you sitting at home going like, how do I make this perfect thing? And then now you can actually charge $20 an hour and say it only took you 20 hours instead of 40 hours and going, oh, well, I only charged them $200 or $400 when really you spent way more time. And then from there too, if you get good at something, charge more, but really charge what you think. Right now is a logo $400. And you go, that might be two hours. Maybe that's going to be 20 hours. And maybe all those logos average out that you only spend, X amount of hours, and it becomes this thing where now, maybe one project was 2 hours, maybe one project's 20 hours, but now you're at 40 hours, right? So, something to think about. Okay, scratch yourselves. Okay. All right. But yeah, I think find a generic number, start with that, and I think that's a good way to kind of approach it. Anybody else? Design, photo. I do have a question. Anybody messing with AI right now for art? Learn it. What are you using? Yeah. Okay. So it's a great concept right now. If you can imagine, they're high-fiving over it. So, but I literally have been typing like 1950s vintage poster or like, Swiss style typography layout, and it gives lockups and all these things. But it's a great place to start. And I really, really believe in using whatever tool. Nothing's going to replace us. It's going to replace a couple people, maybe, I don't know. But no, I think it allows all of us to work faster. And so, ask Mario about cutting out construction paper with X-Actos. Like legit, right? Like, you saw me earlier. If I didn't have a command key or a control key, I don't know where I'd be, so that idea of this is just another tool, like learn the tools. And I'm like, I want to share, I'm a sharer, but also because like you guys are about to enter the workforce in a crazy time. And that's always it. It's like, but these are really great tools to help you guys concept out some stuff and really build out, the future of your projects, and you can get ideas and generate stuff. And then because I love like diversity and stuff, I've been like, show me like the cast of Friends, but they're all like Mexican or Black, and it's great. And it's like, oh, I wish I would have saw it as a kid instead of just like Cheech and Chong and, you know, whatever else. So this idea, like now you can like really see what representation looks like. And now you can see, you know, I had a South Asian friend who he was like, I always wanted to see like a sci-fi movie with us in it. And so he was like, you know, show me a scene from a 1970s sci-fi movie with, you know, Hindi people in it. And it had these great, amazing things from this movie that doesn't exist. And he was like, oh my God, if I would have saw that as a kid, like I would have wanted to be an astronaut, you know, but I saw Buzz Aldrin and Buzz Armstrong and all these other buzzes. I don't know, you know, all these other astronauts. So this idea, right, of using these tools now, once again, right, for what the work you like to do, what your morals are, what your values are. However you feel about AI is kind of like how I think politics, like learn it and know it because it's going to affect you. Doesn't mean you have to like participate and, you know, but use the tools, you know, to your advantage and be aware and be understanding of it. But also like, you know, you can, yeah, you can be something amazing with it, you know. Once again, right, like I had a hard time being an artist. Now this tool can make me an artist, right? So, all right.